Why, hello everybody, how are you doing today? I know some of you guys had to return back to school, and I'm very, very sorry about that. But hopefully this can bring some sunshine to your day, some pep in your step, some growth to your boner. So there's been this ongoing theme where every time I make a video about a comic book character, I get a bunch of comments saying that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about when it comes to comic book characters. So I thought it would be a really good idea to make a video where I'm literally only talking about comic book characters so that I can annoy those people. Now, just to be clear, I don't actually consider most of these characters to be ripoffs. These are just characters that a lot of people consider to be ripoffs, and it's a pretty popular talking point to say that these characters are ripoffs. Like, I don't see how anyone can say that Thanos is a ripoff of Darkseid. I mean, they are virtually nothing alike. You're talking about a different appearance, different motivation, different backstory, different regular story, different power set. I mean, fuck, you can't even say that they're both intergalactic conquerors because one's a conqueror and the other one's not. They're essentially different in every way you could possibly think of. Thanos is about as similar to Darkseid as he is to Brainiac or any other alien type being who's in a ship and goes to planets to fuck them up. So I think people have a very low threshold for what they consider an actual genuine ripoff character. But even for characters that are kind of similar among Marvel and DC, I really don't hold it against them all that much. If you look at the writers for Marvel and writers for DC, they're usually the same writers. Like, you could take any one writer from Marvel and look at his catalog of comics that he's written, and you can pretty much guarantee he has also written a lot of comics for DC. So when you have a lot of the same writers that are jumping back and forth between these two companies, it makes sense that you're going to see a lot of similarities between the two universes. I mean, if you have someone who's writing for Captain America for 5 years, and then he moves over to DC and starts writing, I don't know, Batman or something, he might bring in some ideas that he had for his Captain America run into his DC universe, and he might make some characters that may be a little bit similar. But I don't necessarily think that that means that they're just a straight up ripoff. I mean, it's literally the same people doing it. I think the only way to actually get around this is to get different writers for DC and different writers for Marvel, and then the universes will start to diverge and stop being so goddamn similar. But as long as you continue to share the same writers for both companies, yeah, they're going to be kind of fucking similar. You can't expect all these writers to just completely change their entire writing style because they're working for a different company. So if you saw the title and got a little bit annoyed that I was calling them ripoffs, just know that I don't really think that they're ripoffs, at least not all of them. And I get that that's just a part of the comic book writing culture. But I'm wasting enough of your time. Let's get started. First up, we got Aquaman vs Namor. And you know all the stuff that I just said about ripoffs not really being ripoffs? Yeah, you can basically just throw all that shit in a dumpster because this one's really hard to defend. So going all the way back to, like, I think the late 30s, early 40s, I forget the exact year, Namor was created by Marvel. And he was this half Atlantean, half human outsider to Atlantis that eventually went and became the king of Atlantis and had all of these crazy underwater powers and shit. And I mean, yeah, you get where I'm going with this. Aquaman is basically an exact copy of the Submariner. It's almost like to a T the same character. The only things that were really different about the two is the design, personality, and they had a couple of different powers here and there. But the crazy part about it is that as the years went on and the characters evolved, you'd think that they would evolve to get like more different from each other, like one would go one way and another would go the other way, but that didn't really happen. They evolved to become more similar to one another, and they just started ripping off each other constantly throughout the years. Like, for instance, originally Aquaman had a trident. Namor didn't have a trident. Namor got a trident at one point in the comics, and for a while there, he had a trident as his main weapon, making him more like Aquaman. In fact, that trident had the same name as Aquaman's trident, to the point that DC actually had Aquaman lose the trident and get a new one with a different appearance and different name to make it less similar to Namor's trident, which I feel like they didn't have to do because that was Aquaman's trident first. But then to shit on their attempt of giving him the new trident to make them look a little different, they gave Aquaman like hydrokinetic powers, the ability to control water, which he didn't have originally. But Namor had that. So now their powers are even more similar than it was. But like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, evolve the characters in different directions. Why are you making them more similar? At this point, Marvel can't even point at DC and be like, y'all ripped us off, because they keep copying Aquaman just as much as Aquaman's copying them. It's really fucking crazy. Now, I'm not gonna say that no evolution that was given to the characters makes them different than one another. There are things that make them different, some of which are baffling and super annoying, and I'm gonna go over that right now. So as I said, a lot of their powers are very similar. They both have hydrokinetic telekinesis. They can both breathe underwater. They are both stronger when in the water. All that stuff is the same shit. But what they did with Aquaman to make him different, which I absolutely despise, is they created this concept known as the clear. Sometimes it's called the blue, but it's mostly called the clear. And it's basically this all-powerful, like, universal cosmic force that binds all sea life together. And Aquaman now has control over the... Can comics please stop doing this? This is super annoying. Like, nothing in comics can just be a person with a power. It has to in some way be connected to some cosmic force or all-powerful ancient deity or some shit. You can't just have a dude with water powers. He has to be tied directly to the concept of ocean life itself that is this greater force, right? Like, the Flash can't just have super speed. He's actually connected to the Speed Force, and every single character who's a speedster in DC have to in some way be connected to this alternate universe fucking limitless force that is the speed. Like, just be fast. It's okay to just be fast. Flash is kind of the one that started that shit, but now everybody's fucking doing it. And we've gotten to the point that even characters who have like water-related powers are forcefully attached to this weird cosmic power. Like, it's odd. And the crazy part is that it doesn't actually make Aquaman any more powerful. It's not like he has universal levels of water powers. Like, what would that even look like? No, it's just some pointless shit that's added to the story that doesn't really change anything. It's just like extra flavoring, but it's not unique or interesting flavoring because they're fucking doing it with everybody. Don't you worry, we're gonna run into it several more times in this video. So one thing that I know that people are gonna bring up pretty much immediately when it comes to Aquaman is that he's fought against Superman and he's fought against Wonder Woman. So he's gonna scale to the absolute greatest feats that Superman has ever done in the history of comics. No, he's not. Stop scaling shit like that. You can't do that. I've explained this a couple of times. I'm going to explain it again, probably several more times after. Every single writer across comics has their own idea of what power level each character has. You'll have one storyline where Superman can blow up galaxies. You'll have another storyline where Superman struggles to blow up planets. It's just kind of the way shit works. And you can't just assume that because Aquaman and Superman are on par in a particular story that means they are across all of stories, or that Aquaman is generally that power level. For one, Superman is known to hold back when fighting people that he knows he can kill very easily. He has been known to throw fights because he doesn't want to kill the person he's fighting. And him fighting against a close friend like Aquaman, he is far more likely to throw the fight than to actually beat the living shit and murder Aquaman, which may be what he has to do. Wonder Woman is consistently said to be the most skilled fighter on the Justice League. So how the fuck can someone compare Aquaman's fighting skill to Wonder Woman? You can't. It is consistent that she's better. So the only other alternative is that she wasn't trying to kill a friend of hers and a teammate. These two don't scale. Aquaman has never once in the history of comic books ever been able to blow up a planet or a sun or a fucking galaxy or any of that shit. He's not a cosmic level threat. He never has been. I am so sick of hearing this shit. People were giving me a shit about the last video I made because I said that Thanos' most reliable physical feat of power was blowing up a planet when clashing with Drax. And they're like, oh, that's bullshit. He beat Galactus. I got like 5 or 6 comments saying that. Yeah, you know who else has beaten Galactus? Fucking everybody. The Thing beat Galactus. Kitty fucking Pryde beat Galactus. She punched him in the face like 10 times and almost knocked him the fuck out. Dr. Doom has beat Galactus. Squirrel Girl has beat Galactus. If you scaled every character based on who's beaten Galactus and who hasn't, you'd be scaling every single fucking character to multiversal. Here's the thing, man. Galactus is not multiversal 99.9% of the time. Yes, Thanos has knocked out Galactus. He's knocked him out with an energy blast. He's knocked him out by tricking him into colliding with a planet, and the planet hitting him in the face knocked him out. These are not multiversal feats. Galactus's power level scales wildly. He can be considerably weaker than planet level, and the reason for that is that when he eats planets, he doesn't literally eat it like a fucking taco. He absorbs the energy from the planet. wet. That's how it works. It's not a feat of destruction. Physically speaking, Galactus does not always have to be a planetary being. So you saying that Thanos is more than planetary because he knocked out Galactus is a fucking worthless argument. It means nothing. Because then you would also have to say that Kitty Pryde is of equivalent strength. I don't know if you've ever read a comic book, but no the fuck she isn't. She doesn't even have any strength enhancements. And she was able to punch and nearly defeat Galactus. People constantly try to tell me that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about when it comes to comics, but I feel like these people see one feat on a fucking respect thread or some shit and just go with it. And they ignore all of comic book history. Nobody who says that Thanos is stronger than I said he is because he knocked out Galactus has the right to say I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to comics. I'm sorry, but you haven't been paying the fuck attention. Galactus plays bitch mode often to many different characters. Alright, so back on topic. Aquaman fighting against Superman does not necessarily mean that he is Superman levels of power. He's not. He is consistently shown to be under Superman, and I don't care if he's fought against Superman. Pretty much everyone has fought against Superman at some point, and Superman has been beaten by characters who are considerably below him several times. Because again, Superman doesn't actually want to hurt or kill people. That is something that is nearly always written into his character. So how strong is Aquaman in reality? He lifted an ocean liner over his head. That was pretty good. He also lifted up a city block. Like he ripped a whole city block out of the ground and then just lifted it. And it was clearly like the heaviest shit he ever lifted. He was like sweating and made this like I have to shit face. And it was clearly an issue to lift this whole city block. And really that's it. That's basically his maximum strength feats right there. Like I said, he's never been a cosmic level being. So I don't understand why people try to argue that just because he's fought against Wonder Woman. But yeah, Aquaman's pretty powerful. The big thing that's really going to help him in this fight is that the whole thing about him having to get water every hour, that was basically completely eliminated in comics. He now can live on land without any real issues, and he's basically just as strong on land as he is in water. He gets a slight power boost in water, and he's definitely faster in water, but he's shown having pretty similar feats on land, and he's basically a on land and water type being now. He really doesn't get a bunch of additional weaknesses for not being in the water, which is not the case for Namor, who we're going to talk about right now. Namor actually does have a whole issue where if he's not wet for a particular amount of time, although the time is never directly stated, he can get super weak and eventually die. He has to get wet at some point. On top of that, he does have some powers that Aquaman doesn't have. Like, for instance, although very limited, he doesn't use it very often, he should have the powers of any sea creature that exists. He should also have those powers. Like, for instance, he has electric powers that he gets from eels. At one point, he was able to like spray this ink stuff in someone's face like an octopus. Like, he has the powers of anything that lives in the water. He has echolocation, he can see in the dark, all kinds of shit. But the reason why I'm a little iffy on this one is that he doesn't really use them all that often. Like, you'd think he'd be able to do all sorts of crazy shit like camouflage and all kinds of stuff. He doesn't really use it. It's been stated that he has the power of any sea life, but he doesn't really tap into it all that often. Every once in a while, he'll do something. He'll just pull out some crazy power that you've never seen him do before. You're like, oh shit, I forgot he could do that. And then it just goes away for like 15 years and you never see it again. So I don't really know how useful that's going to be for him. The only one he really uses often is the electric shit. He really likes to shock the fuck out of people. He likes the eel shit. And on top of that, he also has the power of flight, which he's got these little wings on his ankles. They look fucking stupid, and for some reason it allows him to fly, and he can fly. And those are really the only two powers that he has for the most part that Aquaman doesn't also have. Like I said, they're very similar characters. His power is also not like stupidly tied to some universal level force for literally no reason. As for his strength, this is where Aquaman fans are probably going to be pretty annoyed with me. He is consistently shown to be considerably stronger than Aquaman. Before his massive power up, which he got in the new Marvel comics, he was capable of lifting up an entire island above his head. He literally just swam under it and swam and just lived the whole fucking thing. It was like a small country. That's significantly more than anything Aquaman has ever been shown to be able to lift. And that's before the power up. See, in current Marvel comics, if he's wet, his strength increases vastly more, like considerably, to the point that he's one of the strongest heroes in all of Marvel comics. Just some of the things he's shown being able to do in current comics when he's wet includes beating the entire Avengers team by himself, which includes Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider, Captain Marvel, Asian Hulk, and Thor all at the same time. He's shown being able to fight against Sentry on par, against Thanos on par, against a lot of cosmic level beings on par. are. And you might be thinking, well, it's bullshit. Why can you use that, but you can't use the Aquaman against Superman? Because the Aquaman against Superman is an outlier. It's written into Superman's character that he doesn't want to hurt Aquaman. That's a permanent part of who he is as a character. And we already know the strength difference between Aquaman and Superman. We see it constantly. That's not necessarily the case with Namor. Namor doesn't beat Sentry. He doesn't beat Thanos because he can't, but he can stand up against them. And Sentry and Thanos are characters that will not hold back against Namor. As far as defeating the entirety of the Avengers, maybe you could say they held back, perhaps, but Namor defeats them so fucking casually that you can't even say that they threw the fight, because they put up no fight whatsoever. Like, he completely dominated them, and he was threatening to kill all of them. He was the villain of that story, basically. Even before New Age Marvel, Namor has been able to fight against Savage Hulk and Thor and be on par with those characters. Now, Hulk does beat Namor more than Namor beats Hulk. That's true. So I don't put him up to that level, but he has beaten Hulk. I think he beat him like 3 times and Hulk beat him like 4 times or something. It's pretty close, but Hulk generally wins. The idea is Hulk can be weak as fuck, but if his anger is high enough, he'll surpass basically anybody. That's like the whole idea. So it's sort of iffy. But Namor consistently fights equally with Thor, and Thor blows up planets pretty consistently. Like, Namor at his absolute lowest is still at least a low cosmic level threat, and you can't really say that about Aquaman. So who wins in a fight between Aquaman and Namor? Well, Namor is physically stronger. Speed is kind of irrelevant because Marvel and DC just don't give a fuck about speed. Sometimes characters are faster than light, sometimes characters are slow as shit and can't dodge bullets. It's all over the place. Every character can outspeed the Flash, and every character can be outsped by the Flash in both Marvel and DC. It's super fucking random. There isn't even any point in talking about speed. So the conclusion that I come to is that pretty much in any location, Namor defeats Aquaman relatively easily. Unless they're in a desert or some place where there's absolutely no water they can get to, then Namor's power level drops below Aquaman, and really, even if it didn't, Aquaman just has to kind of outlast him, which he'll be able to do. But if they fight anywhere else, even on land, like in New York City or something, Namor will be able to find some kind of water source. In the comics, it doesn't even need to be water. At one point, he gave himself a strength boost by covering himself in blood, and it gave him a massive strength boost, and he was able to defeat this enemy that was taking on the whole Avengers team by himself. I mean, if they're fighting in the middle of New York City, he could just bust in the ground and swim in the sewer real quick, or just spray himself down with a fucking soda machine at a nearby McDonald's. It's really difficult to not be able to find any moisture around you. So overall, Namor wins. Get mad about it. Up next, we have Hulk versus Solomon Grundy, and this is one of those ones that I don't understand why comparisons are made between them. Like, Solomon Grundy is a big-ass zombie with super strength, and the Hulk is a mad scientist who basically gave him like a Jekyll and Hyde sort of thing where he has 2 different personalities that change back and forth. They're both big dudes with super strength. Like, I don't understand how they're similar at all. At least that's what I would have said if you asked me that question, I don't know, 5 years ago. Because for some fucking reason, both characters decided to link themselves to some cosmic force. Like I said, you're gonna see this a lot on this fucking list, where now their powers aren't just their powers. They have some greater like, why do you keep doing this? Please stop it. So Hulk is no longer just a mad scientist who basically has like gamma radiation that gave him the power to turn into a monster. It's not based in science anymore. It's magical and mystical and like multiversal thing. Gamma radiation, which exists in the real world, by the way, it's not made up for comics, is actually not just gamma radiation in Marvel. It is linked to hell itself, and it's a mystical thing. How fucking stupid. And Hulk is now a being that's like from hell, that was created by the one below all, which is like Marvel's Satan. Even though Marvel already had a Marvel Satan, they have actual Satan as well as Mephisto and a bunch of other characters that are Marvel Satan. But no, this is like super Marvel Satan. And Hulk now has power over life and death and can bring people back from the dead, and he can return from the dead himself and send people to hell and keep them in hell so they can't come back. And all this, he has power over life and death. And Solomon Grundy was now linked to this power called the Gray. Like, the clear was connected to all aquatic life, the Gray is connected to death itself. Solomon Grundy has power over death. He is connected to the Gray. So basically, these two characters that were virtually nothing alike are now very fucking similar to one another, because both of their powers are linked directly to death and the afterlife. And they are mystical and like multiversal in nature for some fucking reason. Now, I think think Solomon Grundy is pretty badly slept on. A lot of people just think that he's like a big old zombie dude who fights against Superman, gets his ass kicked every once in a while, but he's actually really fucking powerful. First off, he's not actually a Superman villain. He's generally known as a Green Lantern villain, but every time he comes back, he also has a different personality, a different intelligence level, and a different strength level. So sometimes you'll see him be pretty shitty where he can be taken on by Batman, but sometimes he'll come out and he'll be like a fucking cosmic level threat that has a large amount of mastery over the Gray that can just basically control death across an entire universe. It's really impressive sometimes. The only problem is for him to have this amount of power, it's really just a roll of the dice. Most of the time he comes back, he doesn't have his maximum power and intelligence and all that. It's pretty fucking random. Now again, if you would have asked me 5 years ago who would win this fight, I would actually sit here and have a decent conversation and comparing their abilities and all this kind of stuff, and we'd actually have a good talk about it, because Hulk and Solomon Grundy were a lot closer in power at that point. However, that was before Immortal Hulk fucked up Hulk's whole fucking lore and shit and decided to add all this bullshit hell power magic, which basically makes him completely undefeatable in terms of him fighting against Solomon Grundy. He literally controls the door to hell. He can send people to hell. He can stop them from coming back from hell. He can come back from hell all he wants. He damn near one-shot the one below all. He is said to be, as a concept, the enemy of logic. He can just ignore logic and physics all he wants. He can punch black holes into non-existence. He can affect space and time with just his physical, like, punches and grabs and shit. He can regenerate from completely bodily destruction. If his soul is destroyed and he is erased from existence, it will be recreated and he'll just come back into existence from complete non-existence. He can't be knocked out, killed, mind-controlled, erased from existence. Basically, he's damn near impossible to put down permanently, or even temporarily. Like, it's really fucking wild how brokenly powerful they've made the Hulk. Do comic book writers think that making characters completely invincible makes them more interesting to read about? Because I gotta be honest with you, usually I feel the opposite. Hulk was vastly more interesting before Immortal Hulk came out. Like, you could literally put him against almost anyone in fiction and he'll do pretty fucking well. Like, for fuck's sakes, he has adaptation powers that allow him to come up with new powers on the spot if he runs into someone who can beat him. That's a power that he has. So even if he's not unbeatable and he doesn't have a stupidly overpowered ability that allows him to instantly defeat whoever he's fighting, guess what? It's written into the story that he can at any point he wants to. Any writer at any point can just give him whatever power they want to get him out of whatever fucking situation he finds himself in. And that's exactly what's gonna fucking happen here. Solomon Grundy, even at his most powerful, is a lot more grounded. You can fucking kill Solomon Grundy. He'll keep coming back from the dead because he's a zombie who keeps reviving, but you can fucking kill him. And it takes a little bit for him to come back. It's not instant, like the Hulk is. So basically what's gonna end up happening is Hulk is gonna kill Solomon Grundy. He's gonna send him to fucking hell because he has the power to do that. And then he's gonna close the green door behind him so Solomon Grundy can't come back. He will remove Solomon Grundy's ability to resurrect, something that Solomon Grundy cannot do to the Hulk. So there is no winning. Solomon Grundy can't possibly win this fight. That's just fucking stupid. People get mad when I say that Hulk can defeat Superman in a fight pretty easily. They always get so uppity about it. But how the fuck could Superman possibly win? What power does he even have that could possibly overcome Hulk? Like, there's nothing. He's too, like, the fuck. Hulk at this moment of the comics is essentially the strongest superhero that has ever been made in fiction. They made him too fucking powerful. He wins. And he wins very easily. Next up, we got Sentry vs Superman, and this is another one that I think you kind of have to stretch the meaning of ripoff in order to call Sentry a ripoff of Superman. I mean, he's clearly inspired by Superman, obviously, but it's almost like the opposite of a ripoff, because it seems like every single creation decision they did to create the Sentry, they basically looked at Superman and tried to do the exact opposite. It's almost like they were using Superman as a what not to do to create a superhero. He flies around, he's got the cape, he has the S. But you know what? We're gonna move his S down to his dick instead, because Superman has his S on his chest. And Superman is created with a bunch of cool colors. We're gonna make Sentry with more like a warm color pattern. And Superman has black hair. We're gonna give Sentry blonde hair. And Superman is a purely good hero who's a beacon of hope. And we're gonna make Sentry super fucked up and give him like this dark evil entity inside him that just goes off and murders a bunch of people. And he's gonna have a bunch of fucking mental health issues. Superman gets his powers from the sun and gets stronger the closer he is to it and the more outside he is. And Sentry is going to be an agoraphobe who actually is terrified of the outside world and stays in his like little shack in the woods and never wants to come out. Like, they're literally opposite characters. But before I get started in telling you of which one of these opposite characters would beat the shit out of the other opposite character, I kind of have to touch on some stuff that people were really annoyed about in my Goku video where I had Superman beating Goku. So people were really upset in that because I said in that video that Superman does not have the powers of every single Superman, that you can't use just an amalgamation Superman because it doesn't make any sense. Like, a lot of those feats he doesn't actually have. And people argued with me saying, no, current Superman is actually an amalgamation of every Superman from every universe combined into one. So you're actually wrong, and the exact opposite of what you said is right. Fuck you. And what I have to say about that is, where'd you read that? On a wiki? Because that's not what happened. Yes, a bunch of different versions of Superman from a bunch of different universes did all come together and form into one Superman, and he got a massive power increase. That's true. But that's not what I argued. I specifically used examples like Cosmic Armor Superman and Superman 1 Million. And it is specifically stated that those versions are not a part of it was not every single version of Superman across comics. What I was arguing was not that all of the different universe versions are not in one person. Cosmic Armor Superman is not an alternate reality version. That's Prime Earth Superman when he's wearing cosmic armor. If he doesn't have the cosmic armor, he doesn't get the power boost from wearing the cosmic armor. Cosmic Armor Superman feats cannot be applied to current Superman. Superman 1 Million is not one of the versions of Superman that was combined into the main version. That is specifically stated. So yes, Superman got a big buff by having a bunch of other Supermans come into one. It's not every single one of them. It is specifically stated that many versions, generally the most powerful versions, are not a part of this current Superman. So no, what I said was not wrong. Cosmic Armor Superman literally had the power to rewrite his own story. He was not only aware that he was in a comic book, but he like had fucking story manipulation and reality manipulation, and like he had the power to write the comic he was in. The current Superman in the comics doesn't have that ability, and you can't prove he does. So stop fucking lying. Also, what the fuck are you guys getting so mad about? In the video of Superman versus Goku, I said Superman would win. What, are you mad because he didn't win as strongly as you wanted him to? Fuck you! Motherfuckers can just never be happy. Like, how you get mad that you won, but just like not as well as, like, I wanted to dominate. I wanted to shit on his mother's corpse. I didn't want to just beat him like a normal fucking person. So how strong is Superman? Well, he's fucking Superman. I mean, you know Superman's powers. Everybody knows Superman's powers. It's just agreeing on exactly what level those powers come to. And a lot like Savage Hulk, it's very dependent on certain factors. Like, Hulk's is specifically related to his levels of rage. Superman is specifically related to the amount of solar energy he has in his cells. There isn't a whole lot he's shown to be able to be weaker than like even planetary level, but if he's sun dipped or he straight up just has a lot of fucking solar energy in his body, he can basically do anything the writer wants him to do. He's capable of taking two separate universes and like pushing them together so that they become one universe. At one point when he was fighting another version of Superman, their clash almost destroyed the universe they were in, much like how Goku did with Beerus. It's been stated very recently that Superman has gotten so powerful that concepts like time, space, and death just straight up don't apply to him anymore. He's not actually capable of being killed. Like, he's just a very powerful cosmic threat that kind of gets somewhere around low multiversal when he has like the full power of the fucking solar energy in his cells. And he's got all that classic bullshit. Heat vision, freeze breath, fly, super strength, super speed, yeah, all the usual stuff. He's Superman, people. I should not have to talk about this for the next 15 minutes. When you hop over onto the other side, it gets a little more complicated. Sentry's powers are a little less simple. He has powers over all molecules and energy sources, so he can basically just do whatever. He's been known to develop powers out of nowhere just by changing his molecules to give him new powers. At one point, he had all of the molecules in his body completely eradicated and he was just straight up erased, and he somehow recreated his molecules out of nothingness and came back into existence. So he can come back from existence erasure. He's been capable of beating the shit out of Galactus, but again, so is everybody else. Join the club. He can control people's minds. He can create objects out of nothingness. He can erase objects into nothingness. Like I said, if I sit here listing powers, I'd be listing them forever because he really just does whatever the writer wants him to do. It's very similar to how Superman used to be written back in the 80s when writers would just make up fucking powers for one issue and then they would just go away. Except in this particular case, there's actually an explanation for it, as Sentry is capable of manipulating his molecules. And that's their explanation for how he just comes up with powers on the fly. The only real weaknesses the character has is his own own mental state. Basically, if his mind is like super fucked up, he can become weaker. Although I don't 100% buy into that, because all of his best feats have been done when his mental state is like super fucked up. Like, he destroyed all of Asgard and defeated Thor and fought the entire Asgardian army when his mental state was at its worst. He ripped apart Ares, the god of war, when his mental state was at its worst. Basically, all the times he's done the most incredible shit is usually when his mental state's fucked up. But a lot of the people who read the comics always say the same thing. His mental state being fucked up makes him weaker. I don't really see it 100% that way, and I don't think that quite holds water. There was this one thing that happened relatively recently in comics where he fought against Null, who's like the god of the symbiotes, and Null ripped him in half and actually like successfully destroyed him. And a lot of people call bullshit because we know he can come back from complete non-existence, but for some reason he didn't instantly come back from this. And it was one of those moments that you hate in comics where you have a new guy come in and they beat the shit out of the strongest old dude, so you know just how dangerous they are. But in this case, it really didn't make a whole lot of sense. So you kind of have to just assume he has the ability to keep Sentry from coming back. Although that's never said in a comic, it's really just an inconsistency. But for the purposes of just sense, we're gonna have to say that Sentry was somehow halted from returning by Null. He did eventually return, so it wasn't even like a permanent, but then again, nothing in comics is ever permanent. You know, I need to stop beating up on comic writing. People are gonna think I don't like comics at this point, but a lot of stupid shit happens in these books. Anyway, if you pitch Superman against Sentry, what exactly is gonna happen? Well, that's super dependent, but I think there's really only one possible ending to the actual fight. Right off the gate, without any of the sun absorption stuff, Superman's gonna start losing. He has to actually get that sun and become this insanely powerful being that he is. Otherwise, there isn't even really a fight to be had. Once he does get that and he goes and he actually starts fighting Sentry, now it's going to be quite a bit closer, and he may actually even start dominating Sentry, as Sentry is capable of destroying the universe. This is stated multiple times, and there's even other timelines where he just straight up does. In fact, it's usually the Void Sentry that does it, and Sentry is stated to be stronger than Void, so he should be above Universal pretty easily. So you basically have a low multiversal being against a high universal to possibly low multiversal being. So overall, it would be a very close fight. The main issue here is that neither is capable of killing the other. Again, Superman is above the concept of death, and he has no way of permanently killing Sentry, as he can just keep bringing himself back to life. You're basically going to have like an infinite slugfest with both characters pulling out a bunch of different random fucking powers that they could just invent off the top of their heads to try and take out the other person. But here's the reason, and I know this is going to piss off Superman fans, that Superman can't really win this fight. It's because of how his powers work. You could say all you want about how unstoppable and how amazing, how awesome Superman is, but the fact of the matter is that they just had two different storylines back to back in DC Comics, one in 2022 and one this fucking year, where Superman lost all of his fucking powers because he lost solar energy from his cells. Sentry has power over molecules and all forms of energy. If he discovers that Superman is capable of absorbing solar energy, he is capable of removing that energy from Superman's body, completely depowering him. This is exactly what happens to Superman in World War Apocalypse, a storyline that just came out in 2022, as well as Superman Absolute Power, which just came out this year. This happens to Superman all the fucking time. It is a major weakness for him. And Sentry is capable of casually doing this. He's done similar things to other people in the past. And the fact that Sentry's power isn't specifically tied to any real source, it's just based on his mental state, Superman doesn't really have a way of doing the same thing to him. Now, you can say that Sentry can't ever do this to Superman because Superman is above time and space and all that shit, but you know what? So is Sentry. They never say it out loud, but he fights against characters who are above space and time all the fucking time. If you're a cosmic level character in Marvel and DC, that's kind of a given. Characters like Silver Surfer, the Chaos King, Odin, Galactus, all these characters are above the concept of space and time. Most of them create whole universes outside of space and time where it doesn't even fucking exist. Like, this is a common thing, and Sentry has fought against and beaten pretty much all of them at some point or another. So him fighting against a character that's above space and time isn't really a new thing. And Superman's whole I'm above death bullshit is only the case if he has the solar power in his cells. Once they're taken away, as shown in Superman Absolute Power, He's just like a dude. He's a normal person at that point. He loses all that. There's no version of Superman where that's not the case. And before you try to use the argument that Sentry himself releases rays of light that will empower Superman at all times and make him stronger, no, that's not actually true. There are not actually UV radiation that comes off of Sentry. Sentry's whole thing where it's like he has the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns, that's just like a cool way of saying he's super powerful. It's been confirmed multiple times that it's actually not UV. It has nothing to do with the sun. It's not related to stars in any particular way. And even if it was, Sentry has been shown turning that light off during fights. Like I said, he manipulates his molecules in all manner of different ways to have whatever kind of power or appearance or whatever he wants to. Sometimes his power is more based around darkness than it is light, because it's just however he feels at the particular moment in time. The only way that I see Superman defeating Sentry is if he's somehow mentally like not right. And I don't mean like he's kind of fucked up in the head, because he can be pretty fucking powerful doing that, but he has to actually believe lesser in himself to the point that he can't use his power. Like he basically has to be in a deep depression or something like that, so that his powers diminish to the point of just making him a regular person. Because there are times in the comics where he's so down that he's actually not even capable of using any of his powers because it's so heavily tied to his mental state. But if Superman doesn't have any way of actually causing that mental state within him, which he doesn't, because Sentry has a very high resistance to any form of mental manipulation. Also, Superman doesn't really have any way of knowing that that's how his powers work. Like, it's not as obvious as Superman being able to go into the sun and absorb solar radiation. Like, Sentry can actually witness that happening. He can see the sun empowering Superman. In fact, Sentry should be able to actually see the solar radiation inside of Superman's body. He is capable of seeing energy sources. So other than that very unlikely scenario, I just don't see Superman beating Sentry in this particular fight. Last up, but certainly not least, we have Deadpool versus Deathstroke. And finally, I get to talk about a normal fucking fight. Nothing's over the top or ridiculous. It's just two dudes fighting with swords and guns to the death. Simple, easy peasy kind of stuff. Love it. That is my kind of shit. So, what is the deal with these characters? Up first, Deadpool. He's a fucking ninja assassin dude who's like really stupidly overpoweredly skilled, and Thanos took away the concept of death from him, so he can never actually die. Never mind. We're still doing the stupid shit. Okay. Yeah, so basically everybody knows Deadpool shit. He has insane levels of regeneration. You can cut him up in little pieces, blow him up, cut his head off, turn him into a fucking puddle. He doesn't die. He comes back no matter what. Now, I do believe that in the comics, they actually removed his whole death concept thing from him. That's actually something that did happen. So I could take it away for this fight, but he's generally known as that's like his whole thing. And at some point, to be honest with you, it's probably going to come back, because that's his whole deal. In all of his comics, the whole point of his comics is that he's just this cartoony, over-the-top dude who can't die and knows he's in a comic book and all that sort of shit. It's just, that's the version of Deadpool everyone knows. So that's the version I'm going to use. And honestly, it's really not going to make much of a difference in this anyway. Because over on Deathstroke's side, he has a sword called the God Killer. And the God Killer sword is a sword that he doesn't always use, but he does still have it in the comics and can use it anytime he wants to. It's a big ass fucking sword that was made by the Olympic god of weapon crafting, Hephaestus, and it basically allows him to kill immortal beings. He can kill gods, he can kill beings that are above death or don't have the concept of death. It basically kills anyone he wants to kill. So essentially, Deadpool's whole I can't die bullshit doesn't really matter. It's completely irrelevant. Now, having said that, Deadpool does have a Chitauri cannon, which has the ability to erase someone from existence and erase them from every timeline and the entire history of the timeline they're in across the entire multiverse with a single shot. Can you just have like normal guns, dude? Like, can we just do normal shit? I just want one fucking fight where everything's just normal. So basically what you have is two super ninja assassins with really insane healing factors that can't die, but both have weapons that could like permanently put down the other. So, you know, really it kind of is just like a normal fight for the most part. Now, generally speaking, Deadpool has a much better healing factor than Deathstroke does. Usually Deathstroke cannot come back or heal from like having his organs damaged or having a whole limb being lost. Like, he still hasn't been able to grow his eye back, although I know there's reasons for that. It's just It's relax. Don't freak out. Point is that his healing factor is just not like Wolverine, Deadpool levels of healing factor. But the God Killer sword does completely remove that as a concept, which kind of makes it a little strange because Deadpool's weapons, at least his swords, don't have the same effect on Deathstroke that Deathstroke's weapons will have on Deadpool. So despite Deadpool's healing factor being significantly more, for this particular fight, Deathstroke's healing factor is actually going to be a lot more useful. And also, it's important to note that the Chitauri cannon that Deadpool has is not something that he usually carries around in his arsenal. He does have this like bag that he can put his hand in. It's like a pocket dimension. He can just pull out whatever item that he has, and he does have that Chitauri cannon. So at some point, he can pull it out in the middle of the fight and use it, but chances are it's not going to be his go-to weapon. But really, the main reason why Deadpool, I don't personally believe, can actually win this fight is because Deathstroke is just a far better fighter than Deadpool is, like consistently. There are very few characters that can beat Deathstroke in a hand-to-hand fight. Batman struggles with him. Even the greatest fighters in all of DC struggle really badly when it comes to fighting Deathstroke. Deadpool is a very skilled fighter, but he's perfectly okay with being sliced up, cut, blown up. Because he's aware that he can't die and damage doesn't really do anything to him, he's sort of gotten not very good at actually defending against attacks. He doesn't care if someone hits him. Like, he'll actually talk on the phone while fighting someone and let them slice him to shit, and it just doesn't bother him at all. And then he'll kill them while on the phone and just continue on with his day. He goofs off a lot. He doesn't really take fights very seriously, and he's just kind of this fucking cartoon character. Against someone like Deadpool wielding a weapon like the God Killer that can actually kill Deadpool in a single hit, Deadpool's gonna fucking die, especially if he doesn't know that shit. He's gonna go in there the same way that he always is. He's gonna fight a guy who is significantly more skilled than him in combat, and the first time that sword hits him, Deadpool is going to instantly realize, oh fuck, this dude can actually kill me. He's gonna have to get over himself and actually start getting serious. And that's if that first hit isn't fucking fatal, which, knowing Deadpool, it probably will be. Like, Deadpool's the type of guy who will just stand there and let a dude chop his head off just for a joke. I don't see any possible way that Deadpool can win this fight. But okay, I know I'm giving Deathstroke the victory, very heavily based on Deadpool just not being aware of what Deathstroke can do. So if Deadpool does know what Deathstroke can do, does know that that sword will kill him, will that change the outcome of the fight? No, I don't really believe it will. Like I said, even at his absolute best, Deathstroke is a better fighter than Deadpool. Deadpool, even knowing what Deathstroke has, probably won't pull out the Chitauri cannon first thing, but even if he does, Deathstroke will be capable of reacting to it and dodging it. I mean, Deathstroke has taken out the entirety of Team Flash with just pure skill. Like, it's pretty insane, the stuff that Deathstroke has been able to do. The fact is that in superhero comics like this, a character with a sword is more impressive than a character with a gun. If Deadpool pulls out the Chitauri cannon and shoots at Deathstroke, he'll dodge the shot, and he'll be able to dodge the shot a lot and make it up close to Deadpool. Deadpool's gonna have to pull out a sword and sword fight him, and if he does, he's gonna fucking lose. Deathstroke is significantly better than him, and for the first time in Deadpool's pretty much entire comic book history, he's actually gonna have to feel some level that he can die in a fight, which is something he hasn't dealt with in, I don't know, decades at this point. There are weapons that Deadpool has gone up against that have harmed him to the point that he can't heal right, but he won't die. He just won't be able to heal right for a while, and he'll just joke about it or whatever, and everything will continue as is. But he hasn't met a weapon that can legitimately fucking kill him in a single strike, which is exactly what the God Killer can do. So yeah, Deathstroke wins. And is it kind of reliant on the fact that he has the God Killer sword? Yeah, it is. That's true. Without it, he'd have a much harder time for sure. But honestly, even without it, Deadpool has lost fights before, even with his death-defying abilities. And Deathstroke is a good enough fighter that he could probably come up with some way of actually doing it, whether it be like knocking him out or chaining him up or whatever. I mean, he's got other ways of taking out immortal characters, especially one that he's so far superior than. But that's gonna be it for me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, if you join the membership, you get videos early. Bro, I am getting so fucking good at that. And always remember, you stay safe out there, you hear?